The killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has become more than a criminal case. It has sharpened America's political divide and raised urgent questions about the state of free expression. Why has disagreement in the United States become so toxic that violence is seen as an answer? Why can't a citizen make strong or unpopular political argument without fear of attack? Instead of uniting in grief, the country has split further apart, with far-right groups portraying Kirk as a martyr, while others warn that inflamed rhetoric risks fueling more unrest. The case highlights how political violence is eroding both trust and the basic freedom to speak without fear. As we delve into the details, still on, President Ikome Sako announces a federal government draft and urges full Ambazonian participation. Now, this and many more will be detailed in today's flash news. As we get into the details, good afternoon and welcome. I am Tabitha Akor. Let's begin. The fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has unleashed a storm of anger among Trump supporters, turning his death into a rallying point for the far-right and amplifying warnings of an escalating cycle of political violence in the United States. Kirk, who is 31 years of old, who is the founder of Appoint USA and a prominent ally of President Donald Trump, was gunned down during an event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Authorities have yet to identify the suspect or disclose a motive, but the lack of answers has not slowed partisan reaction. On right-wing platforms, including X and Patriots, grief quickly gave way to outrage. Thousands of posts framed Kirk's killing as a politically motivated attack, with some users calling it the beginning of a civil rupture. Researchers monitoring online activity found a surge in radical rhetoric, with comparison to the 1933 Reichstag fire and open calls to end democracy. The narrative, according to analysts, reflects how far-right communities are seizing on violence to validate long-standing claims of persecution. Trump himself directly blamed the radical left, accusing his political opponent of fostering a climate of hate. While urging supporters to resist through the ballot box, he sharpened partisan divisions by framing Kirk's death as part of an ideological war. Other Republicans echoed that message, casting Democrats as complicit in creating conditions that made such violence possible. President Donald Trump has made a statement as regarding to Charlie's devastating death. Let's take a listen.
Charlie Kirk.
I think it's terrible. They're going to be ashamed of themselves. It's terrible. I have an indication, yeah, but we'll let you know about that later.
Do you believe the killer was a trained assassin? Usually your instincts are always on.
I'd rather not say. I think progress is being made. He's an animal, total animal. And hopefully they'll have him and they'll get him. What he did is disgraceful. Charlie Kirk was a great person, a great man, great in every way, especially with youth. And what he did, what this man did, was disgraceful. So hopefully we'll have him and we will deal with him very appropriately.
Democratic leaders strongly rejected the accusations, condemning the killing while warning against the dangers of politicizing tragedy. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries emphasized that political violence is never acceptable, while California Governor Gavin Newsom called the attack reprehensible. Senator Elizabeth Warren accused Trump of fueling hostility himself, pointing to his long history of inflammatory rhetoric. Now, the backlash extended beyond mainstream politics. Far-right commentator Steve Bannon labeled Kirk a martyr of the America First movement, urging followers not to back off from confrontation. Members of the Proud Boys circulated online, posting accusing liberals of mocking the killing, while prominent right-wing influencers shared screenshots of social media users celebrating Kirk's death, encouraging harassment campaigns against them. Now, amid the outrage, some conservative voices called for restraint, warning against plunging the movement further into violence. Yet, experts caution that such appeals may be drowned out by louder extremist rhetoric. Neil Parker of Common Ground USA, a non-profit working to reduce polarization, said the rhetoric illustrates how political violence online can translate into real-world risks, just as we see circulating in the media. Kirk's prominence made him both a symbolic figure and a lightning rod. Known for mobilizing young conservatives, he was seen by allies as a vital voice in the MAGA movement. His killing and the volatile response it triggered underscores the fragility of America's political environment at a time when mistrust and extremism are already at historic highs. Now, in the wake of this, President Donald Trump seeks to offer Charlie a posthumous Presidential Freedom Medal. Well deserved. Let's take a look.
So many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd, very, very big.
With the investigation still underway, law enforcement faces the dual challenge of identifying Kirk's killer while preventing the outrage from spiraling into new acts of violence. For a polarized nation, the question is whether this tragedy becomes a moment of reflection or another accelerant in a dangerous circle of political confrontation. In a new development, Charlie's casket has just arrived in Arizona. His wife, Erica, and Usher Vance are seen holding hands. There's a devastating moment for the family and even the world and loved ones. Let's take a look. Over to Nepal. Can Nepal's appointment of former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as an interim prime minister calm the street, or will it only buy time in a circle of unrest? That is the question facing the Himalayan nation after youth-led protests forced the resignation of KP Sharma Oli this week. The decision, expected after a meeting at President Ramchandra Paudil's residence comes in the wake of the country's worst turmoil in years. Demonstrations against corruption and a now reversed social media ban left 34 people dead and more than 1,300 injured, exposing deep frustration among a generation that sees little opportunity at home. Let's take a look at the scene.
Police kid, fuck it over. Police, police, this is a police tackle. Police tackle.
Is that a reform, a revolution, or citizens just tired of circles of corruption? Karki, Nepal's first female Chief Justice, has emerged as a compromise candidate backed by both the presidency, the army, and the Gen Z protesters who catalyzed the uprising. But can one interim leader restore trust in institutions that many young Nepalese believe have failed them? Wedged between India and China, Nepal has endured repeated bouts of political instability since the abolition of its monarchy in 2008. Chronic unemployment and economic stagnation continue to drive millions abroad in search of work, leaving the country heavily dependent on remittances. Signs of calm began to return to Kathmandu on Friday, with shops reopening and police carrying batons instead of firearms. Yet, soldiers remained on patrol, underscoring that normalcy is fragile and hinges on whether Karki's appointment can deliver more than symbolic change. That is the new development coming over from Nepal. We hope that this would be a productive one and maybe a change for the Nepal citizens, especially the Gen Z's protesters. Now taking over to Ambazonia from the home front, President Samuel Ikome Sako has called on citizens of Meme County to take full participation of the federal government draft in Meme and Libialem. And this draft is scheduled to hold on Saturday, September 13th, 2025. This was held in a speech ahead of the event. President Sako addressed that Meme should not be left behind in the process. He announced that all roads would lead to Cape Town on the day of the draft and thanked supporters for their continued commitment. The Amazonian leader further urged citizens, community leaders, and fighters to redouble their efforts in the struggle for sovereignty. He also encouraged federal executives and supporters of the movement to strengthen Meme County, describing its progress as central to Ambazonians' future. Now taking you over to Nigeria. In Nigeria, Peter Obi meets Jonathan amid 2027 election speculations. As Nigeria's political climate heats up ahead of the 2027 presidential election, speculations are mounting over possible alliances that could reshape the race. A post on X by presidential aspirant Peter Obi on Thursday stirred reactions nationwide after he revealed details of a closed-door meeting with former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan in Abuja. Obi described the talks as productive, noting that discussions centered on the state of the nation. The disclosure triggered debate over Jonathan's political future, with some Nigerians suggesting the meeting could signal an enlightenment alignment rather between the former president and Obi. Supporters on social media hailed the encounter as a step toward a new Nigeria, while others suggested it could pave the way for a strong opposition coalition to challenge the ruling APC. Still, Jonathan's possible re-entry into presidential politics remains divisive, with critics warning that his return could deepen political fault lines. Now, whether this meeting represents a strategic alliance or a mere consultation, it underscores the fluid nature of Nigeria's pre-election landscape. As the 2027 race gathers pace, the prospect of an Obi-Jonathan undertaking could either redefine opposition politics or expose deeper rifts within the political class. For now, Nigerians are left asking, is this the beginning of a powerful coalition or simply another chapter in the nation's shifting political drama? With this, and as we hope that the subsequent days and as Nigerians look up to the 2027 election, we hope that their choices get and the best candidates win. This is what we're drawing the curtain on today's Flash News. I'm Tabitha Ako. Stay tuned for Horizon.